Hello and welcome to the Talk of the League podcast. My name is Matt Smith, and we are now live on the weekly Armchair Sports Talk channel on YouTube. I want to take a massive uh, thank you to Mr. Astro here. He's coming all the way from stateside. So thank you very much. You're on your lunch break. It's 5 hours behind our time here. That's why we're a bit earlier than
Yeah.
usual. So thanks very much.
Oh, you're most welcome. I'm honored to be here. Thanks for having me.
No problem. So I've noticed yourself over Twitter the last few weeks. That's how I kind of got to know who you are. Your kind of battle calls, your rallying calls for go get them up the toffees and stuff like that. That's how I kind of caught you. You caught my attention. You've been kind of doing match reactions for Toffee TV and stuff like that. And I tell you what, you have me pumped before a few of the games. So thank you for that, by the way, because it's been quite miserable as an Evertonian the last few weeks. So I must say thank you very much for that. But one question I wanted to ask you is, why Everton?
Sure. Why not Everton? But honestly, for me, it was Landon Donovan. In 2010, late 2009, I heard he was coming over on loan to Everton, and I go, Everton, I've heard of them before. And my football exposure up to that point had been very limited because growing up in the South was all American football, baseball, and so forth. My first exposure to proper football actually had an Everton connection. Looking back on it, '96 Olympics in Atlanta, Georgia. The football was played in Athens, which is right on the doorstep of where I grew up. See the Brazil in quarterfinal. Golden ball. I was happy wearing a green shirt. Ended up in the Nigerian supporters. Ammo was playing the day. Okay, so I went mad. Got wasted with the Super Eagles that night in town. It was great. But their supporters, obviously not the team. But no, when Landon Donovan came over, I started watching the matches and. Because my only exposure had really been national team stuff for the U.S. The women being boss and the men kind of not so much. And it came down to Landon. I started watching, and he came back to the States, and my heart stayed in Liverpool. I was like, we're pushing for Europe because I had read the history of the club. The kit that year was a throwback to the '85 season. So obviously, when I got that kit and I saw the names of that team at the top of that shirt, I started books. I started reading, Wikipedia pages, and I loved like the history of the club and like the stubbornness and the pure fight that just seems to be Everton. So I happened to move to Germany late that year, and I made my first trip to Goodison Park in 2011. Saw us beat Fulham 2-1. Sahag, Coleman, and Clint Dempsey. It was cool to see him score, but they lost, which is great because I wanted to see Everton win. And I've honestly been hooked ever since. 7 matches, a friendly in Germany, 2 matches. Remember the City match where Yelovich was brought out and the dude jumped out of the stands and chained himself to the goalpost? That dude jumped out of the park end about 5 seats from where Dave and I were sitting. It was Matt. Also, West Ham at home. Lukaku won it for us with a late header in 2014. Away days at Chelsea, Wigan, Southampton was freezing my butt off for Pochettino's debut in a 0-0 draw down there.
Oh, really? Yeah.
It was brutal. We let a savage burn on Southampton that night. Me and one of my buddies, we decided to just drink and revolt that night. It ended up in a McDonald's and me yelling "Fries are for the weak" and things like that. But it's just always been Everton. The club grabbed me, and I have to be honest, it's not so much the football that I did. It's the people. It's the supporters. It's the fact that I was in the middle of a crowd and it was sleeting in Wigan and we were singing our asses off, raising all kinds of hell. And the same thing in Chelsea, when we were away. There's a connection. It's a borderline, it's a familial bond. And I've realized that I came for the history of the club and the football we were playing at the time, but I've stayed and my heart's blue because of the Evertonians. like those people that went down the motorway Crystal Palace to watch that guard last weekend. They give up their time, they give up their money, and they go and they support rain, shine, sleet, snow. Road Warriors, Everton style, are doing the work, and it's those people that I feel this, like, I don't know, this fierce connection to, and I don't know. It's video started as a joke. It's like one part drill sergeant, one part Macho Man Randy Savage, and one part Southern Baptist, preacher, all mixed into one. And it started as a laugh, and people took to it, and I couldn't understand why. And I tell you what, as long as Evertonians need to hear my stupid butt talking about, and what we're going through, then I'm going to keep talking. Because if I can do any good for any Evertonian out there, listen, I'm going to keep talking, and I'm going to keep pointing out the flaws that I see within this football club, because I care about it, and I want it to weather the storm that we're in right now. And I'm honestly concerned about its future because of the trends and the way it's carried on up to this point. So I hope that answers your question in a really long-winded way.
I was going to say, you must love being miserable then, because there's no entertainment on the pitch. That's for sure. That's anyway. So listen, we'll get stuck into. We're going to get stuck into. I want to talk about the current squad at the moment before we get into Rafa Benitez, because I think we can talk. We probably have a whole episode on its own with Rafa Benitez. So, player by player, I think Everton probably have a starting 11 and probably 2 or 3 players in the bench that are probably worthy of a Premier League team, and the rest are just there to make up the numbers. I don't think they're good enough. They're probably not even good enough to be in a Premier League squad, never mind being in the Everton squad. So, what do you think is going wrong in terms of our starting 11, the way we set up, the way we play? And is it just a case of that we have really, really good players, but they're not playing the right formations, or they just don't want to try and win the game? They're not showing enough fight.
I think the players are suffering from the same condition the club is suffering from. It's lost. Okay? We used to have an identity and a style of football that we played. We didn't splash money on players, just because they were the hot sticker in the panini. You know what I'm saying? Transfer window. We bought with our needs in mind and our budget in mind. Okay. Now, obviously, that got flipped on its head when new ownership came in that had money to burn. And what you have is you have the wrong manager who has charged with taking this land of misfit players that have been cobbled together through how many managers over the past 6 years? I mean, and he's been charged with making a winning team out of it. Now, obviously, Ancelotti, under him, the football that we played wasn't the most attractive, but we got results until later in the season. His unexpected departure at the beginning of the summer has unfortunately set off an error chain, right, that has just run right through the summer. You compound that with the problems we have with Premier League profitability and sustainability, and an owner is reluctant to put any money in, even if he could, because of the financial commitment of Bramley Moore. And unfortunately, you have a squad that is, it's I don't know. It's like the puzzle pieces don't match. It's like you took puzzle pieces from 6 different boxes, and you're trying to make a picture out of it. It's never going to happen with the manager that you have. And I don't think they'll be able to spend anything in the January window. And I was heartbroken that Tim Howard stayed at Everton maybe a season too long, and he declined, and we had to watch that, and hurt his. It's the same thing we're doing to Seamus Cole. I've had the privilege of meeting Seamus twice, and I have to say that he's one of the most genuine, sincere human beings I've ever met. And to watch him being asked to play week in and week out, when we've known for 3 years that we needed to replace him, Baines got the opportunity to walk away at his peak and have Dina just naturally supplant him on the pitch. We're asking Coleman to hold that position down, and we're asking too much. But because he's got the heart of a champion, he's not going to lay down and he's going to give it all he's got. But unfortunately, what he's got isn't good enough week in and week out. He may be as good as he once was, but he's not as good. You know what I mean? It's just a bad situation where we've been forced into a corner.
So you feel like the club are letting Seamus Coleman down? It's not Seamus Coleman letting the club down.
Listen, I am a person who grew up with half my life not being exposed to proper football. Okay, I could see the fact that he's always relied on his pace to catch up for his, mistakes in positioning, right? Because he had loads of pace. Remember when he came up, he played on the wing, right? When Moyes first brought him into the first team, he primarily played on the wing, didn't he? On that right wing.
Yeah.
Then he naturally revolved back into that right wing position when Neville was gone. Okay. So there you go. They're letting him down because they've asked him to do this job for far too long. Seamus suffered that horrendous leg break. He's also had other injuries, and if I can see the blatant need for a right back, why aren't the people at the club seeing that and acting on it? And that's what brings me to the problem I have with Benitez. I'm gonna be Janet Jackson and ask, what have you done for me lately? Okay, Benitez hasn't won anything in a long time. His tactics are outdated. Unfortunately, he's the wrong man at the wrong time in the wrong job. He's arrogant and he shouldn't be. He's smug and he shouldn't be. And who knows what's going on, but it looks like he turned some potential right backs down in the summer transfer window. And if he did, then more fool him because he's put us in this situation. Seamus Coleman has the heart of a champion. Seamus Coleman is a great servant and one of maybe the best captain I've seen in my decade plus supporting Everton. But we're doing him a disservice and at the same time a disservice to the club by asking him to walk out there week in and week out and not have a natural backup who can slide into that position.
And it seems to be the kind of way as well, like even
can share that wealth of experience and maybe some of that care.
Yeah. And it seems to be, sorry if I'm cutting across there, it seems to be that even we knew that Seamus was losing that kind of extra yard of pace, and we knew that Seamus wasn't going to be able to bomb on as much as before. But we haven't had even an up and down right winger. Like we had Theo Walcott, we've got Andros Townsend in there now as well, but we haven't had a kind of a player that can get up and down the wing that can help a player like Seamus Coleman, who probably is at the end of his career. Like you said, he's had that tough leg break and stuff like that. But we still haven't even rectified that position. Like how can a club like Everton, who are looking to get into the Champions League spots, in the last 4 seasons, we've had Theo Walcott, who you would say was on his way out of Arsenal, and we gave him 20 million for his services. And now we have Andros Townsend, which I won't have a bad word to say about Andros Townsend, by the way, because he's come in and he's done the job that he's asked him to do. And in fairness, what you see is what you get with Andros Townsend. He will give 100% no matter what. But how have we spent so much money on centre-backs, so much money on forwards that aren't good enough, and we haven't spent 10, 15, 20 million on a right-back or even a right wing-back that can help Seamus Coleman? We're playing centre-backs in our full-back positions. Another question what I wanted to ask you as well is, our head of recruitment has left the club recently in the last few days. Another guy as well in terms of recruitment has left the club. Marcel Brands has left the club in the last few days. I can't tell you who brought in Alex Iwobi, who brought in, it seems to be a mixture of a lot of people in there. Ancelotti brought in this player. Rafa Benitez brought in this player. Marcel Brands brought in this player. But it's kind of like Marcel wanted him, but Rafa doesn't want him. Ancelotti wanted him, but Marcel Brands didn't want him. So there's no contingency plan there. There's no, this fella here is going to improve our squad tenfold. So where do we go from here? And in terms of, they're kind of sleepwalking into, are we improving? Are we doing the right thing by getting rid of Marcel Brands and the head of recruitment? Are we taking a step back? Are we kind of just saying, we'll see what happens? Where do we go from here in terms of bringing players in?
Okay, so first of all, let me say this. Who knows? Because Marcel Brands was so ambiguous in his time here. He didn't talk to the press unless they were Dutch. It was a paper, right? Stroop waffles and coffee with Marcel. You know what I mean? That did not equate to television interviews and exposure to the fans, abroad, in the UK, North America, everywhere else. What were his responsibilities? What was his job? What were the standards? Okay. And we don't know that because at Everton, it's literally the most accurate embodiment I've ever seen of pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. We don't know what's going on. We don't know who's in charge of what. If a professional is afraid of consequences and accountability, they are not a professional. Okay? Listen, you can't just stand in the sunshine and enjoy the good times. Time to cut the ribbon at Bramley Moore. Okay? Ship doesn't just shine, okay, on our bright days. It's a beacon when it's our darkest times and it gets us through. Okay? That's what leadership is. And Everton Football Club is bereft of it. Who stands up and talks when it's bad? Nobody. They all hide. Like somebody cut the lights on and the cockroaches have run for the corner. So Marcel Brands is like this. Either he was allowed to do what we all think that he was allowed to do to sign players and recruit, and he was abysmal at it. Okay. But why, if that's the case, why did the club offer him a 3-year contract? Okay, I don't know why. So it must not be that. It must not be that. So it must be that he was there. He was sidelined. He wasn't allowed to do all the things that he needed to do. And that's why he looked bad from the outside. But now that brings in the quality of his character. Because are you going to accept a 3-year contract making £1 million a year for basically having people walk over you and not let you do it? I mean, I'm sorry. But when you're a professional at that level, that lacks of any moral fortitude, that lacks of any conviction to do the right thing. And unfortunately, that's the kind of stuff, that's the sterner stuff that's required Everton out of the situation that it's in right now. So who knows? And I can say I don't. I mean, we've seen the injury news leak out today, okay, about Townsend, about Richarlison. And is there any of this? Brands, when he left, the club didn't release a statement until midnight. You can't steer the narrative story if you're behind it. I am not a professional.
It seems to be
when it comes to football in any way. If I can see all this, why can't they?
But we've no connection with the club whatsoever. So if a player gets injured, we hear about it. If a player gets injured, we hear about it off accounts like El Bobble on Twitter, the View from the Bullens account. We hear about injuries from on Twitter about 24 hours before the club even.
Same way,
So why can't the club come out and say something simple? Say Richarlison has sustained a slight calf problem in the match against Crystal Palace. He's going to have a scan today. We'll see how bad the injury is over the next couple of days. Perfect. That's all they need to do. It's telling us that he has a slight knock and that's it. But no. So basically what it's doing is we're getting tweets from Twitter accounts, fan pages, and the only thing it's doing is creating more hate and anger towards the club for them not telling us. So we have a few comments here. I'm just going to go through them as well. Reese was asking a question in relation to the managerial appointment. So the first question I'm going to ask you as well is, I think I know where you stand with Rafa Benitez. Do you think he was the right man for the job, or do you think he was basically he's been put in a situation where no manager in the world can control?
I don't think he was the right person for the job. Okay. I'm not going to say like.
Who is the right person for the job? Who is the right person for the job?
I'm going to say this, right? Fine. That leads me. I've actually thought about this answer quite a bit this morning. I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't think I was going to say this, but I'm going to be real. I think that Duncan Ferguson needs to be given a shot to be the next Everton manager. If not now, then when? Okay. Duncan Ferguson is the kind of, and first of all, I'm gutted. I never got to see him play. I only get to watch the highlights, and that man makes me want to run through a wall watching highlights that are, 20 years old, 10 years old. Okay. And his conviction, the way he's connected to the club. My videos that I do are inspired by the the videos that Big Dunk did for people in a way. I think that if Rafa's not getting a tune out of these guys, but I honestly believe that you could take a guitar with no strings, paint it blue, and Duncan Ferguson would get a tune out of it.
I think you're
honestly
right there.
that. I think now.
I think what you need. I think you're right what you're saying. Okay, so we had Carlo Ancelotti in there. He got some form of tune out of him. He was able to grind out results. But the problem with it is we have a squad there that has the DNA of 6 previous managers. Okay.
Yeah.
So any manager, and these players, like a majority of them probably aren't good enough to get us to where we want to be. They might be good enough to be in a mid-table Premier League side, which is what Everton are at the moment. But we want to improve and get into that top 7 teams in England. Now, the problem with Everton fans at the moment is that we do expect a lot. Our expectations probably exceed reality. So I'm a fairly realistic Everton fan. At the moment, we are a mid-table team at best. I wouldn't even say that the players are overperforming. I wouldn't even say they're underperforming. They're performing at their base level, and that is 10th to 13th at the moment. And that's just me being completely honest. But I do agree with what you say. I think the issue with Lucas Dean, he obviously questioned the manager's tactics. He questioned the way he wanted Lucas Dean to play. What do we have then? Do we get somebody in like Duncan Ferguson who's going to rally the troops, like you say, with the war calls and stuff like that, and give them a kick up the arse? And but is that only going to be good for the short term until we find somebody? I don't think there's any manager out there at the moment that's going to improve this squad. We need to be able to get rid of a few players, and also I think that the main job that we need to sort out at that club is the head of recruitment, and that's my honest opinion.
So you always have, and I'll tell you this, in big project management, you always have contingencies, right? All right, you always have contingencies. Everton doesn't even have a plan, much less a contingency to put into effect if that plan that they don't have went wrong. That far behind the power curve. Name me a good upcoming young manager who's going to touch us with a 10-meter barge pole at the moment. I mean, we're honestly a tired dumpster fire right now with like dirty diapers thrown on. You're talking about a club that's dysfunctional, okay? In its day-to-day operation, they can't even get the club shop right. Okay, they can't even get merchandise right. So are you surprised they can't get the football club? So for me, it's like this. You need to bring somebody in who wants to be here. Duncan wants to be here. Why hasn't he left? Okay, he has been under all these different managers, and I guarantee you that man has listened, he has watched, and he has learned. Duncan Ferguson is not just the rallying cry. He's not just the armband running down the pitch, grabbing the ball boy. Duncan, in my mind, and I've heard this secondhand, he has ideas for the academy, for how the football inside of the club should be run, and he cares. Koeman was using us as a stepping stone to get to Barca. Okay, Martinez, he was stubborn. That's what him. All right, Silva, it just wasn't the right time. Big Sam, I didn't want him ever to begin with. I had an uneasy feeling about Ancelotti. I never really took to him, and honest to goodness, when he left, I wasn't completely heartbroken. But Rafa was not right. He was never right. He had a limited amount of time to get the job right. We got that bounce right when he first showed up because new manager, and as soon as it wore off, injuries hit. Look at what it's been. It's been one continuous failure after the other. And listen, at the end of the day, is Dunk ready? I don't know. Only Duncan Ferguson knows. But I'll tell you this: he will give. I watched the derby the other night, and I was in Germany when Klopp was at Mainz and at Dortmund. I lived there, and I was just to those teams because they had some great football teams going there. Because I lived in Kaiserslautern, which they went down out of the Bundesliga. So I watched him go over in front of the away fans at Goodison after derby. Those fans love him. I mean, it's a bit cheerleadery and it's a bit much for me, for him, only because it's the opponent. I'm dead jealous of what they got going on over there. They got a plan. They're playing attractive football. They got a manager that knows what he's doing, that's connected to the fans. Listen, we can hate the Reds all day long, but you better admit jealousy's a part of it. I think we need Duncan Ferguson, not just to get the club going in the right direction, but to heal the Everton heart.
Now, a question for you on this point. A question for you on this point that you're making now, okay? See the way we're saying that the club are letting down Seamus Coleman in terms of not replacing him and giving him a helping hand. Could you say the same that if we brought Duncan Ferguson into the fold, if it goes sour and if it goes the wrong way, are we kind of basically turn around and say, well, we've ruined Duncan Ferguson's legacy? Possibility, like imagine if Duncan Ferguson takes over the reins and Everton are in a serious relegation fight. Are we going to ruin Duncan Ferguson's legacy? Does he want that?
Everton are already in a serious regulation fight. I mean, honestly, I've sat down and tried to put an analytical eye to each fixture for the rest of the year, because I got us coming up with 36 to 39 points max if things don't change. Now that's just me. That's just my uneducated analysis. So listen, like sometimes you don't choose the moment. Sometimes the moment chooses you, and it's not ideal. And you're Seamus in a bad spot by asking him to stay longer, and only Duncan knows if he's capable of meeting that moment. I go back to if not now, then when. And I honestly believe that right now, with the squad being in the position that it's in, it's broken with injury. It's divided in the changing room, and you can blame them. I mean, just the way Benitez, the smugness that he acts with, it's fine. If you're Jurgen Klopp, you can be that smug. If you're Tuchel, or you can be that smug. But you're not winning, fella. You've just presided over the worst stretch of matches since, like, what, the late 90s? And if you think, I think I don't have any hopes for a victory at Chelsea. And I'm honestly just worried about Leicester in a big way, because with the injuries, I don't even think we can be competitive, even with them having a bit of a problem at the moment with letting goals in. You're literally talking about triage. You're talking about damage control. A, who else are you going to bring in? I don't know. B, is there another time for Duncan to take the reins? And could it blow up? Could it all go pear-shaped and sideways? Absolutely. But it's already on the way. And if I'm going to be in a relegation fight, and if I'm going to go down, I'd rather have Duncan Ferguson in there fighting, because I know that man will leave no stone unturned. He will not let his ego get in the way, because he will do what's right for that club. And I do not believe Rafa Benitez will. I never have. And that's the problem. This club has been used as a plaything for a billionaire's whims. He doesn't care about Everton, not in his heart. It's financial investment. And I'll bet you a pound to a pinch of crap that he'll be gone out the door as soon as Bramley Moore comes in and is ready and he can sell it off. We have to survive right now. And anything other than that in the trenches bunker mentality is going to see this club in a very bad place.
So we have a comment here from Reese. He says, I just think whoever goes into Everton has no support. Everton as a club need to do a complete reset and work forward. Maybe Everton need a manager of the fold of Moyes again, to be honest. Now, there was a comment there recently, just from Reese as well, and it says, what would you think about Graham Potter?
Listen, I don't have any bad to say about Graham Potter. I have to admit that my bandwidth towards football is laser focused on Everton, and I really don't watch. I reframe that. My father-in-law is a supporter of Manchester United. He's a season ticket holder, and I do keep an eye on United because it helps us bond and talk and keep in contact. I know Brighton's struggling a bit at the moment, but I think Graham Potter is a really up-and-coming coach, manager that has a bit of fire and some good ideas. But there again, what would you have to pay him brings in profitability and sustainability questions. And B, could you even get him? Because right now, I'm not leaving Brighton to Everton. Everton is a clown show and the tent's falling down. I said the other day, with like homeboy's tap dancing through a minefield in clown shoes right now, and he's about to get us all blown up. And I don't know.
So
You ask
I
great
think
questions that I don't have good answers to.
I think Graham Potter would leave Brighton for Everton. I disagree with you there. Okay, for the simple fact is that
Okay.
potentially Everton have a bigger ceiling in terms of money to spend, the likes of that. I think
But do they?
Brighton. Well, they will. They will potentially. They will, and I think Everton probably have a little bit of a higher ceiling in terms of Brighton. I think you probably, like you said earlier on, that Koeman used Everton as a stepping stone. I think Potter is using Brighton as a stepping stone to something bigger, maybe bigger than an Everton. Um, what I do want to talk to you about before we head off, because I know you're on your lunch break and I know you're in the middle of working as well, and I want to thank you again for
It's all
coming
right.
on.
That's all right.
So we are only a couple of
Okay.
weeks away from the January transfer window.
Good, right an eye on it.
We are only a couple of weeks away from the January transfer window.
Yeah.
Where do Everton go from here, looking at the current squad? Bear in mind, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, hopefully, fingers crossed, will be back within the next couple of weeks. Richarlison and Townsend is going to be out for the next 3 to 4 weeks, apparently. Yerry Mina, it just seems to be made of biscuits. There's no point in it. I think we should try and cash in on him, to be honest with you. What do Everton need to do in terms
Yeah.
of stabilizing this sinking ship? Because especially if we don't have enough money to spend, a lot of money to spend, we have a lot of holes that need filling. And I think I'll give props to Rafa Benitez for one thing. He might be able to get certain players in on loan or cheap. But the problem what you have there, if you do get them cheap on 2 or 3 year deals, how do you get rid of them?
And that begs the question, like for me, I think we have to strengthen the back line. And we have to strengthen the midfield. If you want to play counter-attacking football, you can't have goal line in left, right, and center. Okay. If you want to counter-attack, you got to be solid at the back. Seamus needs some help at right back. And also, when it comes to Yerry Mina, his knees must be made out of Cheetos. Or Quavers. Honest to goodness, we need to cash in. He needs to go. We need a center back in. We need somebody that Michael Keane can latch on to, because he is not an alpha, okay? He's not an alpha center back. He's not vocal. He's timid. He looks like if you walked in and popped a paper bag, he'd jump out of his skin and hit the ceiling. And you can't be as nervous as a long-tailed cat room full of rocking chairs when you're in the court of a Premier League football team. Left back, is Dina going to get to play again? Is he going to get back in Rafa's good graces? I know this, right? I've had personality conflicts with people professionally in my life, and because of their talents, I could not pull them out of the role that they were in. What I did was I steered them, and I worked for compromise, and I found a way to get the best that I could out of them while stomaching the most tolerable amount of crap from them that I could get away with. And if there's a personality conflict there, you're adult, you're professionals, work it out. And if you can't, then who's wrong? And that's a question we don't have an answer to. We need help in the midfield, because when you talk about depending on, Alon, who's getting towards the end of his career, king of the yellow card. No, I see that comment. I don't want Maguire. Y'all have him. But no, I think we honestly need help to build from the back. We need help to build from the back. We need to strengthen the midfield. We need to get right back, a center back. I don't know. And I would love a striker other than Rondon, but but I know that ain't happening. If ifs and buts were candy and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
I think the reality of it is that we're going to be really hamstrung by financial profitability and sustainability limitations, and I don't think we'll get half of what I'm asking for. I'm afraid that we'll see somebody go. I don't know if that'll be January or the summer, but I have a feeling that a high-profile player is going to be cashing on Dina, Richarlison, DCL. It's where the wind's blowing.
Right. So
I don't want Phil Jones either, pal. Sorry, Reese.
Before I let you go, Astro, again, thanks very much for coming on. What
Thanks for
are
having
your
me.
hopes? No problem, man. Thanks for you, and I'll have you on again. Definitely, no problem. What are your hopes and aspirations, if any at all, for Everton this season?
Everton's fan base is divided right now. I've had people having a go at me, and that's just fine. That's fine. That's fine. You can have a go at me. You keyboard warriors don't scare Astro a bit, and I mean that sincerely. You can have it ain't going all. I've taken on worse than one kitten, so don't play that game. Everton's fan base is divided, and I think that if I had any expectation for this year, I would love to see a change of a manager that the entire fan base could unite behind and hopefully heal. And I would also like the club that I love to operate like a proper professional organization, one that isn't afraid of its customers, who is honest about the shortcomings and failures that the club has, but moves forward with an honest intention of continuous improvement. That, you know, isn't just about Cozy FC keeping the boys and girls that are in Ken Wright's good graces employed. I would like to see a review done by an external entity that is, that is honest about, people's strengths, people's performances, people's shortcomings, who needs to go, who needs to stay. Brave recruitment that brings in people with fresh ideas and the capabilities to see those ideas through to fruition. That's a long Christmas list, and you don't always get what you want, like the Rolling Stones told me years ago. But if I could just get a couple of those things, it'd be a Merry Christmas.
Yeah, listen, I think we need, as a club, I think we just need to, first of all, I think Mashiri needs an advisor that actually knows how to run a football club. Um, I think once we get that, I think we'll be in a much better position in terms of, because I think,
Agreed.
like you say, Mashiri is a businessman. He likes shiny things. He sees the big stadium there. He sees the likes of, oh, Iwobi, he plays for Arsenal. Let's throw 35 million at Arsenal for him. And what has he done since he came in? So,
Irritate
listen,
me.
yeah, but listen, um, this I think I'm an Everton fan as well, and I think I just want the club to get a bit of passion back. We got a glimpse of it against Arsenal there on Monday night there, and if we can get back to the way we were before, like you said, penny pinching, getting players maybe out of the likes of the Championship, lower league clubs from the French division for next to no money, and then we turn over a profit by selling them like we have done over previous years. We have
That's
to get
right.
back to running. We have to get back to running our club the way we did before, and that's the only way I think, as a club, as a fan base, and as a business, we're going to be able to improve. Because this stadium that's sitting there in the distance on the horizon in 2.5, 3 years time, that if that stadium wasn't on the horizon, can you imagine the fume that this club would be in? Can you imagine the
No,
fume this club would be in? So listen, I won't go any further into that. I won't go any further into the stadium and like that.
I
Astro, I
can't.
want to thank you so much. I want to thank you so much for coming on to the weekly Armchair Sports Talk. Guys, Astro is absolutely fantastic on Twitter. The videos he puts out, even if you're not an Everton fan, all you need to do is basically just imagine that Astro's talking about your club, and it'll get you up for any game. And listen, the stuff that he puts out for Toffee TV and all that is fantastic. So please go over, give him a follow, and yeah, thanks very much for coming on again, Astro.
Yeah. Real quick, it all started as a joke because people were DMing me, asking me for Christmas messages and birthday messages and stuff to record them. I'll tell you what I'm doing. If anybody wants a personalized, stupid Astro message for a friend or a colleague, it doesn't matter. I've done them for Reds. I'm doing them for Blues. I'll do them for anybody. All I ask in return is that you get them to me by the 18th of December and that you make a small donation to charity, okay, like a $5 or some other random act of kindness, because I think that, the holidays have a tendency of being darker these days because of everything that's going on. I think small things like that can brighten the place up for everybody. So if anybody wants a holiday message, hit me up on Twitter. If I'm not following you, just message me and I'll follow you back. DM me the details. Pick a charity of your choice. Throw a $5 their way. Screenshot it. Send it to me, and I'll get the video squared for you before Christmas. So I wanted to say thanks for having me on. We've been talking about this for weeks. I'm really, really grateful for the opportunity. And I really enjoy what you guys are doing. Keep up the great work, and I'll be available as often as I can if you need me.
Thanks very much, Astro. Listen, guys, like, subscribe to the YouTube channel and all that. Follow me as well on Twitter if you want. A
Definitely.
positive Evertonian at Smitty2 on my one there as well. So, guys, listen, thanks very much and have a Merry Christmas. Astro, have a lovely Christmas and a Happy New Year to you as well, buddy. Okay?
Happy Christmas, mate. All the best. You take care.
Up the toffees.
Up them toffees, baby. Woo!